Hi, I'm Devin Wirth, Technical Specialist for CHS Agronomy. Today I want to talk to you about proper tank mix procedures. You know, it wasn't too long ago when it really wasn't that complicated to tank mix different pesticides in the tank. There wasn't a whole lot going in. Usually it was something like glyphosate and whatever else you wanted to throw into it, whether it be a fungicide for plant health reasons or maybe an insecticide, but usually an adjuvant. But now we have resistance issues. We have resistance to herbicides, we have resistance to fungicides and insecticides alike. So what does that mean? That means we have to add multiple modes of action to the tank. That means multiple different herbicides, multiple different fungicides and insecticides just to control different kinds of pests out there. And so we take a tank mix in the past that was probably 2 or 3 different things in the tank, and now we're adding an additional 3 or 4 different things to the tank, so it can get really complex in a hurry. And so when you get that complex, things can go wrong in a hurry as well. I mean, we can get gumming up, a lot of different things. And so people are a little bit more careful these days to say, all right, what's the proper tank mix procedure in this situation? And that's where I come in. That's where I get a lot of my calls at. So when somebody calls me up and says, Devin, I have these 6 different things in the tank, how do I go about tank mixing them? I like to refer back to the North Dakota Weed Control Guide. It's really handy. I bet you other states out there have something similar to the North Dakota Weed Control Guide. What it does really well is it gives me a good indication of what the formulation of the herbicide that I'm dealing with is. You know, a lot of the times you go to a herbicide label and it's probably not going to tell you what the formulation of that herbicide actually is. But if you go into this guide, it'll tell you exactly what it is. Additionally, it gives you a good tank mixing order. And so APPLES is what North Dakota Weed Control Guide uses. It's an acronym for the tank mix order of different herbicides in the tank. So that's what I like to use. So before we get to APPLES, what I tell farmers first and foremost is we want to put enough water in the tank so that when we start throwing in our herbicides or other pesticides in there, they don't start gumming up the tank because they don't play together. Adding enough water, where I like to tell them maybe a half a tank, start with a half a tank of water and then start adding things in. Adding that water, you get things that play nice with each other. Secondly, and this is where APPLES comes in, is we want to agitate. We don't want that water or that solution to be stagnant. That's where things can, again, gum up the tank a little bit. So after agitating, we want to add our powders soluble, or soluble granulars. A lot of times this is our AMS. They go into solution really nice, but again, it's still a solid that needs to be mixed in and thoroughly mixed in with agitation. Next, we'll go into our powders dry, and that includes our dry flowables, our water dispersible granulars, and our wettable powders. So an example of a dry flowable here So this is exactly what you're going to see if you don't agitate anyway. You're going to have bigger particles showing up because it just doesn't go into solution. And a lot of these don't go into full solution. They'll always fall out. But when you have a dry flowable in this situation, you're going to have bigger chunks. Again, that's where agitation comes in. So from powders dry, we go down to liquid flowable suspensions. SCs are going to be your most common out there. And here's an example again of an SC. We have a finer particle. We have layering in here, and as I tip, you can see it goes into solution just a little bit better. Since they are smaller particles, they stay in that suspension just a little bit longer, but at the end of the day, they don't go into full solution. Just like a dry flowable, they will fall out. It just takes a little bit longer. So, lastly, we go into emulsifiable concentrates of the types of formulations that don't actually go into true solutions. So emulsifiable concentrates, that's basically your oils. And as everybody knows, oil and water don't really mix, right? So these emulsifiable concentrates, Usually they have some sort of a surfactant package to mix that oil and water, so you really don't have to worry about it too much mixing in. But again, you leave it too long, could fall out. And this is lastly where we end up is true solutions, your SLs, your S's. So these are things that are in true solutions, they'll never fall out. We add them to the end because at the end of the day, we want to get the stuff that's hard to mix first and easy to mix last. So going through apples, it makes things a little bit easier. So in a little bit here, what I want to do is I want to take you through a common tank mix that's maybe giving some people a little bit of troubles throughout the United States. And so that's Enlist 1 plus Roundup Power Max plus AMS. Something easy that could gum up the tank a little bit. So I want to take you through and show you the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. Stay tuned. All right, so I have the setup here, and what we're going to be doing here is I have some 1 liter bottles. I got my AMS in the back, I got my Roundup Power Max, and I got my Enlist 1. And so this bottle here on my left is going to be the wrong way to do it. The bottle here on my right is going to be the right way to do it. And so first off, what I did is I filled this first bottle about a quarter full of water because, let's face it, most of the time we don't want to wait to have our tank fill up, and if it fills up too much, if I get it, a half a tank of water it doesn't give you a whole lot of time to start mixing your herbicides and pesticides in and give you enough time to end, right? But it is what it is. This is the world we're living in right now. So the wrong way to do it, in my opinion, is to start with about a quarter tank of water. So right off the bat here, I'm going to add in my AMS. Now remember, my AMS is an SG. It needs to be agitated a little bit, but for the wrong way, I'm only going to agitate a little bit, give it a couple turns here. Then right away, I'm going to go in and I'm going to add my Roundup Power Max. By the way, everything I'm doing is at about a 10 gallon per acre spray water rate. And about 32 fluid ounces of both Enlist 1 and Roundup Power Max, and about 8.5 pounds per 100 gallons of AMS. So again, I'm going to agitate this a little bit now that my Roundup Power Max is in. And these two should mix pretty readily, pretty all right. So we shouldn't see any falling out from here. Lastly, I'm going to go in with my Enlist 1. So again, not much water and not much agitation. I'm going to agitate a little bit more. And then I'm going to top it off the rest of the way with water. So now we're just going to leave this be for a little while and just kind of see what happens. Next, I'm going to show you the right way to do it. So the right way to do it, we start off with about a half tank of water and we give it time for agitation in between putting in our pesticides. So again, right off the bat, I'm going to add in my AMS, my dry AMS at 8.5 pounds per 100 gallons. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure it's fully integrated. And I'm going to probably agitate this for 3 minutes, 3 full minutes in between putting in my Roundup and putting in my Enlist 1. So for the sake of this video, I'm just going to pause this for now and I'll come back when I put in the Roundup Power Max again. All right, so now that our AMS is fully in solution, because I've been mixing it for the last 3 minutes here, we're going to add in our Roundup Power Max. But before we do that, I just want to point out we're already seeing some reactions with this first bottle that didn't go so well. We're seeing some settling out at the bottom, and it could be from a reaction with the Roundup Power Max and Enlist 1, or it could be some of the AMS that's floating to the bottom. So we'll see later at the end here. I'll give you an update. I'll give you a close-up of what's happening here. But for now, I'm going to put in my Roundup Power Max and mix this up again. So again, in between, I'm going to shake this up for about 3 minutes. And while I shake it up, for the sake of the video, I'm going to pause the video and come back to you. Welcome back. So, give you another little update here. Been 3 minutes. We have even more settling out here in this bad bottle. And it's a little bit more than what AMS is. So what we're seeing here is a little bit of a reaction between our Roundup Power Max and our Enlist 1. So lastly, we're going to add in our Enlist 1 to the good bottle here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shake it again for 3 minutes. I'm going to top it off with water, and then I'm going to do another 3 minutes of agitation, and then we're going to see the results. So it'll be 6 minutes in total, because I'm not going to bring it back just to show you that I filled it up with water, but 6 minutes in total, and we'll see the results between the two bottles. All right, so now that we're done mixing off our bad and our good bottles here, let's take a look at the results. So again, just to reiterate what this was, is the bad bottle was, we had a little bit of water in there, about a quarter of the bottle, and then we had a little bit of agitation in between, but realistically it was almost back to back, putting in our herbicides and our AMS, and then just kind of letting it sit. And so this is what we're looking at here. At the bottom here, we can see this white stuff, and in my opinion, it's more of a reaction than it is anything else. And it becomes evident as I tip this bottle over all the stuff that's caked along the bottom here. If I put it on its side here, we can see things floating back and forth. Again, I think that's a mixture of both the AMS and the reaction between Enlist 1 and Roundup Power Max. So after I had mixed the good bottle up, we waited for about 10 minutes to let everything settle out so that we know the reaction wasn't continuing as we sat here talking. So in this bottle here, since we gave it enough time, we see a clean bottom, nothing floating. I mean, everything up top is bubbles here, but nothing floating on the bottom here. And we have a good solid mixture. Now, with this mixture, I still wouldn't let it sit in the tank for a long period of time because things will still react. Get out there as soon as possible and spray your tank mix that you mixed up. So, to bring it on home here, what we showed here today, it's not exclusive to Enlist 1 and Roundup Power Max. This should be applied to every tank mix that you're doing here. But just to remember, have enough water in the tank when you start. Go by apples, go by your mixing procedure. Agitate, but don't agitate too much because you can beat it up a little bit too and things can start falling out that way. And then lastly, give it time between things that are added. Don't mix pesticides together in the cone and send them on through because that's when when problems can arise. So, I hope you guys have learned something here today. If you have any more questions, please contact your local technical representative for CHS Agronomy. Thanks.